Okay, let's move on to chapter 25. Now, this chapter can be pretty intimidating looking, so I'm going to try my best to simplify the material and make you understand what I think you need to know at this level. With all due respect, it's interesting in all of my study, well, I guess not all of my study, but in much of my study of digestion, particularly when people ask me questions, this is actually the material I go back to because it is the nuts and bolts of how the body uses these nutrients that have made their journey through the GI tract become the monomers, those building blocks of carbohydrates, fats, and proteins, and what actually happens in the body. It's something that is it's more of a biochemistry concept, but it goes back to the roots of what people are really asking. Why does that keto diet help you lose weight fast, although it's not particularly considered by experts or by nutritionists particularly healthy? Why is it healthier to eat a wide range of foods? Why are processed foods not so healthy as fresh fruits and vegetables? So understanding that instead of just saying they are because people say they are, this particular chapter helps you understand why would that be the case. So let's go into it, and again I'm going to try to simplify it and give you a heads up as to what I think is important at this level. Those of you who are going to go on and study in greater detail will take a biochemistry class. In that class you will really study this material. But anyway, there are a couple of concepts initially, and that is understanding what metabolism, what energetics is, according to your textbook, and why that's important with regard to keeping the human organism in homeostasis, and why it's important for us to look at. But metabolism contributes to homeostasis by allowing us to take energy from the food we ingest. We are not producers in the biological ecosystem. We are consumers, and this allows us to consume food and turn it into chemical energy. That chemical energy takes the form of ATP, and that chemical energy is used for all body processes, and you can think of your favorite one or one that comes to mind, but just generally growth, so making new cells, repair of areas. For example, if you had a nice workout and you tore some muscles, you're repairing those muscles. Even if you didn't have a nice workout, you're still repairing something. And then just this normal functioning, maintaining your body heat. You're always 98.6. No matter what the temperature is outside, you're 98.6. Takes energy to fuel that heart. Takes a whole lot of energy to fuel the brain, particularly all of you because you're students learning things. This is why you need all of this ATP. I'm not sure where I am in the FDA food pyramid here with this picture. I may not have the latest one here, but what you have is the breakdown of what the FDA anyway thinks, Food and Drug Administration, your proportions of food should be of the major food groups, and then adding exercise on top of that. Here's I guess a word by word definition of metabolism, the sum total of all chemical reactions. And those chemical reactions take two major forms: breaking down large molecules into smaller and building up from smaller to larger. So breaking down the food that you eat into something that then can be built up into more of you. So catabolic reactions or catabolism is the breaking down of larger molecules into smaller. They provide more energy than they consume, so they liberate heat. So they're exergonic. and they liberate heat. So they give off heat. You give off heat in breaking down. You give off heat in digestion. Anabolism is the building up, and so they consume more energy. They're endergogenic, and they consume heat. The catabolism and anabolism are important things to know. Catabolism is the breaking down of larger to smaller, anabolism building up. Whether they consume or liberate heat isn't so important at this time. Metabolism is an energy balancing act, and that's where the term energetics comes in. It's the study of all energy requirements throughout a time period. So your book describes it as understanding energy requirements is one of the aspects of energetics, the study of the flow of energy and its change from one form to the other. So nutrition or metabolism may be all your chemical reactions. The energetics would be the study of how that energy is used, so how it moves along. And there is a balancing act. We don't want to break down more than we build up, or vice versa. And ATP, so adenine triphosphate, which couples with energy releasing catabolic reactions to produce energy requiring anabolic reactions. So you have ATP as the intermediary between these breaking down and building up. The exact reactions depend on enzymes that are active at that particular time. And the enzymes, and going back to what you learned in the last chapter, those enzymes are prepped for the food that you're taking in. Enzymes, remember, are catalysts that speed up a reaction without actually being changed in the reaction themselves. The definition of a nutrient is anything that supplies needs for the body, metabolic needs. So even white sugar is a nutrient, although maybe it's not the most, I guess, the choicest nutrient for other reasons. Chemicals, so the nutrients include a necessary chemical, substances that provide energy, such as lipids and carbohydrates, something that helps growth in the body, such as vitamins, so something that facilitates reactions, also facilitates the growth or provides specific chemicals. I'm thinking of the chemicals needed for vision, vitamin A, and then a substance that repairs or maintains body functions. So anything that helps you make more of yourself, whether that is in the breakdown process, which is providing energy, or whether that's in the building up process, which would be vitamins and proteins, and then I guess lipids if you're thinking of you're building up more fat content. Vitamins are also important in the breaking down, don't get me wrong, they're important in both. And then minerals too. Here's your ATP just to refresh your memory on what it looks like. You have a adenine, a ribose, and then 3 phosphate groups. ATP is highly unstable, so it has a high energy level to it, and that energy is released when you take off that 3rd phosphate, and we turn ATP into ADP. It's pretty quickly released because, again, lack of stability. We have to take kind of a side trip here in the next few slides with regard to understanding what this oxidation reduction terms mean. I know I have to go back to it all the time. There's a great little mnemonic to help remember it. Oxidation reduction. Oxidation, just like it sounds, it's usually meaning putting oxygen into something, and reducing is generally losing electrons. So you have this is kind of a good graphic cyclically about the anabolism and catabolism. So what you have is anabolic reactions, transfer of energy of ATP to complex molecules, heat's released, then complex molecules onto catabolic reactions, breaking them down, energy is released, and ATP is made in the whole thing. It's temporary stores and transfers energy. It doesn't play favorites. It's the transfer of energy wherever it's needed, whether it's needed catabolic or anabolic. Here we go into our redox reactions, and these are paired. This catabolism and anabolism happens in the environment of redox reactions, and they are paired. You have a removal of electron and an addition of electron, and those electrons are the negatively charged particles that are in the outer valences of the element. So the element has a proton, has a nucleus in the middle with protons and neutrons. Protons are positively charged, neutrons have no charge, and then the electrons are orbiting around the nucleus. What we're doing here with these oxidation reduction reactions is we're removing one of those electrons and putting it onto something that is able to hold it. Now you can imagine if you're removing an electron and you're putting it on something that can hold it, it makes it a highly unstable compound. And that's true, but that instability is where we get the potential energy, that ability to make ATP. So oxygenation is the removal of electrons. Reduction is the addition of electrons. You remember the mnemonic oil rig. Oxidation is loss of an electron. Reduction is gain of an electron. And what you are doing here is taking a carbon chain. The R is the functional group. We don't know what the functional group is. It's just an unknown R. And what you're doing is you're adding oxygen to it as you move from the left to the right. So you're going from the lowest state of energy to the highest state of energy. So the lowest state of oxidation to the highest state of oxidation. And then if you go back the other way, I guess I shouldn't say energy because I shouldn't introduce that term right now. So I think I'm going to keep it just the way it's written, is oxidation. So removal of electrons. So the lowest state of removal of electrons to the highest state of removal of electrons. And then going back the other way, because this is constantly taking place each way, you have the reactions. Many of them are in equilibrium, so many of them are reversible. We'll mainly be looking at the oxidation of glucose because we're going to look at the citric acid cycle. The citric acid cycle is called the TCA cycle, the tricyclic acid cycle, and also the Krebs cycle. And I apologize in advance because I'll spend most of my time calling it the Krebs cycle because that's what I learned it as, so I just apologize in advance. You're burning it through a series of electron transfers, those redox reactions, leading to water, carbon dioxide, and ATP. That tends to be one of the things you want to remember. The byproducts or the end products of glucose metabolism is water, carbon dioxide, and ATP. Leaves oxidation of glucose leaves, and I'm glad I corrected myself before, with a decrease of potential energy. So oxidation leading to a decrease in potential energy. And we'll start this up on the next one.